Hello everyone, Dominic here from Esports News UK. I've got a very special guest with me today. I'm hoping to do these big interviews, one a week if I can, for the weekend, so you can sit and watch them and enjoy. And I'm joined by Scott McMillan, aka Method Sco, the founder and CEO of Method, one of the most well-known UK esports organisations, known for World of Warcraft raiding and esports. How are you doing, Scott? Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, my pleasure, and thanks for the introduction. Yeah, I'm doing great, thanks. As good as can be, I guess you could say, with everything that's going on in regards to the COVID side of things. A lot of restrictions, a lot of lockdown here in London. But outside of that, yeah, just doing good.
That's a good point, actually, Scott. That wasn't on my list of questions, but how lockdown has changed, as an esports manager and organisation owner, has that changed a lot? I know esports is pretty digital anyway, but has that given you more challenges?
Pretty much everything we did here at Method is online. Like all of our staff team and everyone we work with is remote, and they're kind of based all around the world. So Europe, the US is the two most common locations. What was a big change, I guess you could say, was like the first Race to World First that just happened in Shadowlands. Typically what we would do in the past would be like a big live event, obviously, where we had a lot of the players and, talent and casters joining us like in one location. In the past, that was normally in Germany. Obviously this time around, pretty much all the Race to World First stuff had to be done online only. But outside of like the day-to-day operation side of things, I mean, in most cases, I would be sitting in front of my PC pretty much all day, every day anyway, because, that's just how we kind of operate. But at the same time, it has been the thing I like most about gaming is actually being able to meet the people that you spend so much time online playing with or interacting with through like the work side of things. And so I've definitely missed like the kind of like events or just meeting people in real life or in person that kind of breaks up like the daily kind of grind. Because I think that's the hardest part right now, is that the daily grind has just felt like it's continued. Like there's no break to that regard. It's, you're doing the same thing every single day. So I think that is the most difficult part. For me personally as well, the gyms being closed as well has made things a little bit more difficult. I've had to, do the home workout thing with, the body weight and the elastic bands and whatnot. And I've always found the gym to be quite a good mental release alongside, obviously the physical side of things. Because like I mentioned to you earlier, apart from the gym, it really is a case of I mostly do sit in front of my PC and just, work on Method or, of course, play World of Warcraft all day, every day. So it's definitely that part's a little bit challenging too. But I guess we just came out of Christmas and New Year also, which was very, very different this year. I mean, I can't complain. Like I know it's been a very difficult situation for a lot of people, obviously, with COVID. But thankfully, I think those that are involved in gaming and esports, it hasn't been as bad, I guess you could say, as some of the other industries and some of the other situations that people are facing.
Yeah, absolutely. I need to get out running more, actually. I need to do much more exercise because I'm in front of the computer most days as well. Scott, yeah, it's great to talk to you. I guess if we talk about, obviously, there was a big rebuild that happened at Method last year. You lost a lot of your players and you came back. We'll come into that a bit later, but I'd love to talk about what you've been doing recently on that rebuild side of things. You seem to be going from strength to strength. So first of all, Race to World First, what Method is known for, getting those world first, the bosses in World of Warcraft raids. You finished Mythic Castle Nafria in 7th place. You took on board some raiders from Reason Gaming, I think it was, and got some other applications in. How would you sort of reflect on that to start with? Because that, for me, I think that's not so bad, right? 7th, considering you had to rebuild everything from scratch.
Absolutely. So we announced the Method rebuild at the start of October, and the expansion release Shadowlands was coming out in late November. It actually got a little bit delayed to late November. So soon after we announced the rebuild, we announced the Road to World First project. And the goal of this project is basically over the course of the Shadowlands expansion, so over the course of this year, 2021 and going into 2022, the goal is to get Method back to competing again on the World First level. And so with the Road to World First project, we opened up community applications for people who wanted to, apply and help Method, basically build the next chapter of Method's legacy. and join the guild. And that was a hugely successful start to that project, because we received over 1,000 applications of players who wanted to join the guild and help build Method back up. And from that 1,000 applications, there was actually quite a lot of strong individual players, like players who were quite accomplished in the past. It could be like people who had been in previous top 5, top 10 guilds, top 20 guilds, or it could be people who were quite accomplished in other aspects of the game, like they're very accomplished in like the Mythic Plus side of the game, so pushing very high keys and whatnot. And so what I found was that we had a lot of strong individual players coming from the application system, but at the same time, I wanted to also kind of get that experienced, like have some kind of like core experienced officer team, and particularly raid leader as well. And so I was looking for a group of people that would be a suitable match for what we're trying to achieve with the Road to World's first project. And that led me down several different conversations with a few different groups of people, people who used to raid in like top 10 guilds, used to raid in like top 5 guilds, existing guilds that are out there right now. And as you mentioned, of course, that also led to a conversation with the guys at Reason, and they finished Nyalotha World 23rd, I believe. But the conversation kind of happened at a very good time, because they were just in the process too of trying to think themselves, how can we move the guild a little bit more competitive? And ultimately, it was a good match there, and they were very aligned with what we were trying to achieve with the Road to World's first project. And so what kind of ended up happening was some of the core from Reason joined, I guess you could say, a bunch of strong players from the application system. We kind of merged those together to form what was the Method Guild. And I think it roughly worked out to about half the people kind of came from Reason, half the people kind of came from the application system.
Yeah.
And all of this was put together quite quickly because, as I mentioned, Shadowlands was coming out it was just around the corner. So we had a very, very short time of kind of like bringing all these players together in like the space of a month, and trying to build up that guild. A big thing instantly was trying to just build like that team synergy and get the players to start playing with each other and know each other, because guilds in the past, they're typically, well, even guilds now, they're typically groups of players who have played together with the years. They understand what's going through each other's minds, and so trying to build up that synergy was a big thing. But going into Shadowlands with a brand new guild, brand new team, the goal, we kind of had a quiet goal internally that we wanted to try and break into the top 10, which was going to be quite challenging because there was a lot of really good guilds that finished Nyalotha in the top 10 in Asia, and obviously this time around, the base world first continues to just get more and more competitive, really, and especially with Christmas and New Year, with a lot of people having time off work, time off studies and whatnot. There was going to be more guilds doing day raiding, and so it was going to be even more competitive this time around. And it was also the first raided expansion, and so top 10 was kind of like our internal goal. There was a little bit of a side goal as well that we were saying, we just want to beat the Hillam, because Kungin, for those that don't know, he's kind of like a legend of the scene from back in the day. He used to be the guild master of the Hillam, and Method and the Hillam used to have quite a lot of rivalry back in the olden days. This is like back in the Burning Crusade expansion.
That's a name I haven't heard in a while.
Yeah, exactly. So Kungin, funnily enough, had just started rebuilding the Hillam as well at the same time as Method was rebuilding Method. And so there was kind of like, and they said they want to get into the top 20. So our goal, our goal that we said, we want to beat Kungin and the Hillam, like the old kind of rivalry from like 12, 13 years ago.
I missed that in the Hillam rebuild thing.
Yeah, unfortunately, they didn't continue after the Heroic Week, I think. So I think they disbanded just before Mythics, unfortunately. So we kept on, so our internal goal was to try and get top 10, and to actually finish in 7th was actually something I was very, very happy with. Very impressed with how the guild performed. And I guess the biggest thing I'm proud about with the guild is actually it was quite a long progress tier. It took about 2.5 weeks in Mythic progress or so. And we had a very small team. We only had like maybe 23, 24 players, and you need 20 to obviously raid. And, all those guys, they stuck it out over the Christmas, over the New Year period. No one kind of gave up. Everyone was, stayed motivated, stayed hungry. And, we managed to clear out a very, very good rank at number 7. And I'm very excited now for the future, because this has given us, a very strong foundation. We now have an established guild again that we can build upon. myself, after my 15 years of experience raiding with Method, and also the officer team, we took a ton of notes and things that we needed to improve and do better for the next year that we're starting to implement now, with the help of the Method staff team. And also, just really improving the roster, like building the roster up in terms of size, but then also really strengthening it in terms of the player options too.
I was going to ask about that as well, Scott, because isn't this a challenge now where you're asking for other players to apply, you're reviewing other players. Do you have to make that difficult decision to let some people in the guild go, or do you just keep growing it? How does that work?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we did have a very small roster at the end of the last year, so I think we were around like 22 players or so. And so we want to have a roster size of about 30. So just off the bat, there's a lot of extra players that we want to bring into the team. There's a few people, this is another thing with the new guild, is that this last tier that we did, it was actually the first time that nearly every player in this guild did the full kind of hardcore day raiding kind of schedule, as in, they played the game pretty much, for most of that as a day. And so it was a big change for a lot of people in terms of this is the first time, so the question was like, how good a fit is this for some of the players in the guild? Like maybe they don't want to commit to something, so extreme, next year around. So there's always like a little bit of a turnover of players naturally. Like, 2 or 3 people, have decided to, that they need to either go back to focus on studying, focus on, whatever else is going on in their life. But there is obviously, the fact, of course, that the officer team is, doing a bit of a deep dive in terms of, how did people perform this tier, like, they're having a deep dive in terms of the logs and having these conversations with each individual player, and, just making sure that the team in the roster that we move ahead with is the strongest possible team and roster we can, move into the next tier with, because ultimately, of course, the goal of the project is to get back to competing for that world first spot. Mm-hmm. And everyone in the guild, should be there for that same reason, and wants to be there for that same reason. So absolutely, there will be some players who may not, be moving on to the next year.
And also, I was surprised to see on the PvP side of things that 2 of your old players, Waz and Chaz, have rejoined, and you've got a couple of new players as well. So that must have been encouraging to see someone return to Method in that way.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I was thrilled to bring Waz and Chaz honestly back into Method. Like Waz, I've actually hung out about with Waz quite a few times at various different events. He's a great guy, and Chaz too. And obviously, they're the championship winning team that we had that won BlizzCon 2019, like the World Championship. And so for them to come back and represent Method again, it's a very strong sign of their support towards what we're doing here with the rebuild, and their belief in everything that we're doing. And that was absolutely great to see, and they've been performing exceptionally well already in the first 2 AWC Cups that have happened this year too. They finished first in the first one and second in the second one, so I believe that they're in the number 1 standing spot in Europe at the moment, which is great.
Yeah, so they must be happy to come back. They must have seen you've put in new procedures and so on around staff. And do you think others might follow suit now? Because I was going to ask about Echo as well, because last year when a lot of your players left, they joined and formed Echo, another guild. That must have been quite hard for you to go through. Do you think, you'll ever see some of those come back, or what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, it's still really early days, because we obviously announced the rebuild only in October, so we're literally looking at like about 4 months or so now. So I guess there isn't anything like immediate on the cards, but honestly, who knows what the future holds, really, right? I mean, I would be keen to pretty much work with any of the players or talent that we worked with in the past in regards to Method. They're all great guys, and I had a good relationship with them. So.
Okay, cool. And the other thing I wanted to talk about before we go back as well to last year is Joel Holmes-Darby, the
Sure.
Excel Esports co-founder, has left Excel and joined you as general manager. That's only been, I think, a month or so now. How's that been going? Tell us what Joel's been like to work with, what he's been up to.
Yeah, I've actually known Joel for quite a long time. First got to know him when Method took part in the Gfinity Elite Series. I believe that was, if I'm not wrong, like around the end of like 2017, 2018 kind of period. And I quickly got on really well with Kevin and Joel, like the 2 brothers from Excel. And I mean, to be honest, I've always, Joel and Kevin, they both play World of Warcraft, and Joel is a big fan of the World of Warcraft side of things in particular. And I've always had some really good conversations with Joel, and I've always found him to be like a great guy, and someone that I'd always kind of pinned that if there was ever an opportunity, I would love to try and bring him into the Method organization. Because I just, I really liked what I saw in terms of like his work ethic and, his everything that it kind of stands for. And yeah, it just happened that we were, we've been building back up the staff team here at Method. With the rebuild, of course, we're back up to 15 staff members again now. And there was an opportunity for us to bring Joel on as the general manager, and it was just something that I instantly jumped on. And since he's joined it, he's already been adding a lot of value to the organization. It's great to have him as part of the management team. In terms of his background, I guess he actually has quite a strong HR and people background, so it aligns very well with what we're doing internally here at Method. So it's been great to have him on board.
Yeah, so he sort of just I guess looks after a lot of the players and things like that, does he? Just keep the ship going?
Yeah, he's involved in a lot of different projects already.
Right.
He hasn't been here long, but there's a lot happening at Method right now, especially behind the scenes, which hopefully we can share a bit more with the public soon. But he's involved in a lot of different projects. But as you mentioned, looking after the players, the teams is definitely one of his core responsibilities. So he's been very hands-on there, yeah.
Yeah, and I've seen that he's got that passion for Warcraft, because I saw when Shadowlands came out last year, he booked some time off work to, get to the new level cap and do all the content and stuff. So I know he's a big WoW fan. So it seems like he fits right in, which is cool.
Absolutely. I know that he actually, he still actively plays. He raids, I think, in both retail and classic. So yeah, absolutely.
I wish I could do that. I've got 3 kids now. My raiding days are long gone. But anyway, one more thing I wanted to talk about, Scott, before we go back is RuneScape, because you entered RuneScape, I think recently, and you've just announced the other day a 1v1 tournament, $9,000. That's happening later this month, right? So you're involved in Warcraft and RuneScape, Old School Runescape at the moment. Tell us a bit about this tournament. And
yeah, so I mean, RuneScape was just a natural progression for us with Method, because basically, at least my personal mission has kind of always been to try and push MMO and RPG gaming to the forefront of the esports space. I've always felt like MMO and RPG gaming has been quite underrepresented in the wider esports side of things. Like being an active player myself, like the last 15 years with Method, always competing in the Race to World First and World of Warcraft. It was always interesting for me to see, the amount of effort and time that went into like the Race to World First, and like, how significant those achievements were within like I guess you could say like the kind of somewhat closed World of Warcraft community. But then I was kind of looking around and seeing, how things were going in the esports scene with like, let's say League of Legends or CSGO, like these massive games, like with the, players, massive player salaries, massive prize pools, all this attention, all this kind of like, it was like, and what I wanted to try and do was help move World of Warcraft and into like that kind of same kind of light, I guess you could spotlight, and really like shine like a light on what's actually being achieved and trying to celebrate what people are actually doing inside World of Warcraft, which we had huge success with in terms of like the Race to World First, when we started doing that back in 2018, actually live streaming and making like a big event out of it. And since then, I'm happy to say that we've been able to support a lot of players in turning like their hobbies and passions into pretty much like the full-time, career or job. And moving into OSRS is kind of just an extension of that for Method, like really trying to champion MMO and RPG gaming. So moving into OSRS, it's a case of us trying to, be involved in OSRS and basically help the community there, like, lift that community up, and put on events, put on opportunities for competitive content for players. And that's what we're doing, obviously, with the PvP tournament that you mentioned. And so, yeah, we've got a pretty packed schedule on the Method channel of OSRS PvP events coming up soon, because we're going by region, and then obviously finishing with a grand kind of like final, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, for me, RuneScape's a game that's not flown under the radar, but it's not a top tier esport. So it's nice to see orgs like yours supporting it in this way. You don't really see esports orgs supporting it as much. It tends to be the players and the streamers, right?
Well, absolutely. But keep in mind that was the same kind of situation with World of Warcraft as well, not that many years ago, right? It's only when World of Warcraft got a little bit more into the spotlight through like the Race to World First, for example, that more organizations and sponsors and partners started coming into the scene, right? It's like, like some of the big US orgs like start moving into the space. And so this is what you'll find with a lot of like MMOs and RPGs, is that no one is really, pushing those games forward as much as like all the focus is on certain esports titles. Then these other games that have great things happening in them, like very cool things happening in the communities and that deserve to be celebrated. Like they're kind of left a little bit to the side, and what, like I said, with Method, we're trying to really focus on that side of things and move that side forward. So yeah, I'm excited to see what we can do in OSRS. It is actually still a very popular game on Twitch too, so viewership is certainly good.
Yeah, 100%. I look forward to seeing how you do, and good luck with that.
Thank you.
I guess going back to last year, then I have to talk about it. I mean, it must have been the hardest year for you of your life, I guess, or at least in your career. Tell us a bit about that. Was it close to? Were you close to folding everything in entirely?
I mean, as you mentioned, like for me personally, it's probably the most difficult thing that I've ever gone through in my life, for sure. Like it was very challenging, I guess you could say, on like a mental and emotional kind of level. But I quickly realized after everything happened that I didn't want to give up on Method, and I didn't want this to be the kind of the end chapter of Method's story. Because as you mentioned, Method has been such a big thing in my life for the last 15 years or so. It's been over half my life, I guess you could say. And I really didn't want the story to end in such a negative way. And I do feel as if there's a lot of good that Method can still do, and like particularly like I mentioned, like the M1 RPG communities, and champion those communities. And so for me, it was more of a case of trying to rebuild the organization and kicking things off again. But there's a lot of work that's gone in the background in regards to like the infrastructure side of things, the HR side of things, and of course, renewing our code of conduct and our core values and whatnot, which was a lot of work. That was a few months of work there. But ultimately for me, I was very steadfast in not wanting to give up on Method, even though I guess you could say a lot of the cards were kind of stacked against us there. But thankfully, we announced the rebuild in October, and especially going into 2021 now, I'm feeling a lot of positive sentiment behind Method's rebuild. I feel like the community really does want us to succeed, especially off the back of like the Race to World First, where I think we came back and surprised a lot of people about what we've done with the guild in particular. And like going into 2021 now, it is certainly looking like it's on the up and up. Yeah,
absolutely. It's been like a rise, a fall, and then a rise again. Almost like a bit of a dip last year. Can I ask? For me, I haven't heard much at all from Josh. Or are you still in contact with them, or is it you completely cut off now?
I haven't heard. I don't think anyone, to my knowledge. I mean, I haven't really looked into it. I don't believe anyone's really heard from Josh. As far as I understand, he's completely disappeared off the internet. So I haven't heard anything there.
But anyway, moving on from that, I wanted to go back even further, Scott, as well, because like you say, 16 years now, 15, 16 years, you set Method up around the time of the launch of the original vanilla World of Warcraft, right? Could you tell us a little bit about those early days of Method? I'd love to hear what your sort of first main memory was in World of Warcraft, or maybe you were involved in the franchise even before that, like, the early RTS games.
I mean, how I kind of got into World of Warcraft was that I was always such a big fan of RTS strategy games, like you mentioned. Like that's really kind of what the genre that I spent most of my time playing when I was really, really young. Yeah. And that obviously led into Warcraft 3, of course. Warcraft 3 is a great game, still probably one of the greatest games of all time, honestly. Which then led into like playing Defense of the Ancients, Dota.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, when I heard about World of Warcraft, this is back in about 2004, I kind of thought that World of Warcraft would be like a bigger version of like Dota, like basically, where you control like one hero and like a big world.
Yeah.
And so that's originally what kind of got me into World of Warcraft, was thinking it was going to be somewhat similar to Dota for some reason. Different times back then, I guess.
The MMOs didn't exist barely, did they? I think there was EverQuest and a few others, but Warcraft certainly popularized the genre.
Exactly. World of Warcraft was the first ever MMO that I played personally. Which was quite interesting, because a lot of people were kind of surprised back in the old days when I was like the guild master in Method, and I had no experience, in previous MMOs. because a lot of the good established guilds in World of Warcraft, they all kind of came from like previous MMOs. Of like established players in groups. Like I believe, like for example, like talking about Kungan and Hillim again, I believe they came from like EverQuest or whatnot, right? Or something similar. But no, like I got into World of Warcraft on the US beta, and then I started playing it as soon as it got released in 2005. I got myself the collector's edition. I was that much of a fan of
nice.
what was coming up there, and then I created Method in June 2005. The guild back then. It was called something different originally, but then we quickly changed the name over to Method when it became a bit more serious, like shortly after that. But yeah, that's kind of where I've been ever since. And as I mentioned, it's kind of pretty much half my life at this point, you know?
Yeah. Scott, you can't tell us that you changed the name and not tell us what the name is. People are going to be wondering now.
I've covered this actually in an article
have you? Okay.
A while ago. It's the name that we had originally was actually Naked. Which was it was a bit of a meme name, and so when things got to get a bit more serious, we changed the name to Method. I think that was quite early on, and when we started raiding, so a few months after that.
No, that's great. And listen, I know we're coming towards the end of the interview, so I'll try and wrap up last few bits. Thoughts on Shadowlands, Scott? You've been around like I have all these expansions. What are your general thoughts on the game? You don't even have to talk so much on the competitive side, but your sort of general thoughts and the direction Blizzard's going in.
Quick thoughts, I would say good. Like I think that's generally the feeling and sentiment for the most part. I think in the community and certainly like the high rating community too, the high end rating community. I think everyone is actually really enjoying Shadowlands. Some definitely good changes, less grindy than the past, like in regards to maintaining your characters. Also, the first raid, Castle Nathria, I think it's been a great raid. Like I think it's very enjoyable. A lot of the bosses and stuff are really, really good. I'm not sure if you've had a chance to check that out yourself, but
do you know what?
As you mentioned,
I'm level 52, Scott. I'm absolutely shameful. I haven't had time to play, but I'm going to enjoy. I will get to 60, and I will do LFR raids. I will experience the content at some point.
The short answer though is that it is looking good and it's looking positive. Like I think people are generally pretty excited about this expansion. So I think it's going to have hopefully a bright future.
Yeah, 100%. One thing I was curious about that I'll ask quickly, Scott, is Hearthstone Esports, because you have such a background in Warcraft. Have you ever had any Hearthstone players, or would you get involved there? It's obviously a very different esport to team-based games and other ones out there.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that because I know that like I do actually quite enjoy particularly the new Battleground addition to Hearthstone, like the Hearthstone Battlegrounds. Like I think that's a really fun game, and I know that a few people in Method, like on the staff side of things, feel the same way. And recently as well, they actually allowed you to do like full custom battlegrounds, as in you can actually set up, I guess you could say, almost like tournaments if you want to, with 8 players being invited. We did actually have a couple of Hearthstone players in Method. This is back in like 2015 or 2016, I believe, so long time ago. Before all our focus moved on to like primarily MMOs and RPGs, like I mentioned. But I do actually think that, as you mentioned, there is a crossover with the World of Warcraft audience, right? It's not maybe as big as, let's say, some of the other MMOs and RPGs. Like, for example, a lot of the WoW players, they play like Path of Exile or Diablo, like those kind of games. But we are definitely always looking for games that are a good audience crossover. And I mean, who knows if Hearthstone makes sense, then maybe it's a little bit outside of like the MMO and RPG focus that we have. But if there's a good opportunity there to help, but the support and grow the community in that type too, then it might be something that we look at. But no commitments, I guess, at this point in time.
No problem. And BlizzConline is coming up. BlizzCon Online is coming up.
Sure.
Any sort of anticipations there? Anything you'd like to see from Blizzard?
I think what everyone's kind of just waiting to see with BlizzCon Online is actually mainly what the next raid is, right? It's like when is the next raid 2 being released? What the next raid actually is, and when will the next raid 12 first be? That's the question that's in the forefront of everyone who raids mind, at least. outside of that, I'm not sure. I guess we'll just have to wait and see what there is to be excited about. Is there anything that you know about that you're excited about particularly?
No, you've hit the nail on the head there. Really, I mean, I would like to hear more about Overwatch 2. I'd heard about Overwatch 2. I did a story a couple of years ago saying it's in the works, and everyone laughed at me. But I got it right. But yeah, I'd like to hear more there and what plans they have. You know, I find the Activision Blizzard esports setup interesting, but I think there are some improvements they can do. They make changes on the Call of Duty side of things. You've obviously got the Overwatch League. I'd like to see if they're changing anything there or making any improvements, but other than that, any surprises I'd be happy with, add the I want undead elves added to Warcraft already.
Undead elves, right? Okay.
Anyway, that's go on.
Yeah, another variation of elves.
Yeah. Why not? I'm one of those people that I like the elf race. A lot of people watching this might be like, "Oh, Dom, shut up!" But how can you like that? But yeah, no, I want that kind of. I want to be a Dark Ranger, right? That's what I want them to add. Death Knight. Let's add another hero class now, because we haven't had. I think Death Knight is the only hero class, right? Can we get?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I would be very surprised if there's something like that in the works. To be honest, like that's normally something they'd say for like the next expansion. Yeah, so
yeah, exactly. It's wishful thinking from me, I think.
Sure.
Just lastly, Scott, anything else you'd like to add? It's been a real pleasure talking to you. Anything you want to mention, or maybe future goals or targets, or any shout outs you want to make?
Not really, other than just a massive shout out to everyone who's continued to support us in the community, the World of Warcraft community, the MMORPG community in general. And other than that, just watch the space, I guess. Working very, very hard in the background to build Method up, and hopefully that's hopefully we can build something up that the community can be proud of, and continue to support, and just watch the space, I guess.
Yeah, 100%. Well, listen, thanks again, Scott. Thanks again to everyone who's watching. Like I say, I'm going to try and do an interview like this once a week at least, now that I'm doing the site full time. Please follow us, Esports News UK. We do lots of news on UK esports every day, and also give Method, of course, a follow if you're not already. You have lots of follower numbers as it is, Scott, but there may be people watching this from, I'm heavily involved in the League of Legends community, that now that you've got Joel as well, who has the League of Legends background, will be giving you guys a follow. Do you play League of Legends?
I haven't played it for a while. Very casually, maybe like a couple of years ago. Unfortunately, outside of playing World of Warcraft right now, because I'm still so heavily involved in terms of, I'm still a competitive raider, right? Like in terms of that side of things. So it's very difficult for me to find time outside of just playing WoW when there's so much to work on with the organization side of things, right? So unfortunately, it's pretty much just World of Warcraft for me at the moment. But maybe if I had a little bit more time, then I would absolutely, dip my toes into League probably. I do think it's a good game. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, yeah, I just keep squeezing in questions, don't I? Thanks again, Scott. Thanks everyone for watching, and hope to see you all again soon. Awesome. Thanks, man.